By the authority vested in me by the Senate of York University, I hereby confer on you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, admittote ad gradum. Congratulations, Peter. Wonderful.
Congratulations.
So can we get you in the middle here?
In the middle?
Chancellor McMurtry, President Shukri, faculty, staff, graduates, and their family and friends. Dr. Mansbridge. I think I could get used to that. I'll have to ask them to change the opening for the program at night. The National with Dr. Peter Mansbridge. You know, this moment at convocations is supposed to try to encourage the new graduates as they head out into that larger world with some words of wisdom. My favorite memory of days like this goes back a fair number of years to a man by the name of Lorne Greene, who most of you wouldn't remember, but some of your parents and grandparents would. Lorne Greene was a CBC News announcer during the Second World War, and he was a great news reader. His voice was powerful, strong, and they called him the voice of doom because the news that he often brought to bear, especially in the early years of the war, was very difficult. After the war, he decided to take up another profession. He became an actor, and a very successful one. He moved to Hollywood. And he ended up, I guess, best known for a role he portrayed on a Western through the 1960s on television called Bonanza, where he was Pa Cartwright. Well, at a point near the end of his broadcast career, he was invited back to Canada by one of our other great universities and given an honorary degree. And after it had been conferred upon him, he came up to the podium and he looked out at the graduates and he said, "My advice is buy a good bed. You're going to spend a third of the rest of your life in it. You want to be comfortable." And then he sat down. Now, it was pretty good advice, and you want to leave this day trying to remember at least one thing, and I'm sure nobody in the audience that day forgot Lorne Greene's advice. I'll try and do a little different. I'm truly humbled that York University considered me worthy of an honorary degree. And I'm doubly honored that I get to share the experience with so many of you who got here the hard way, the traditional way. I'm the Chancellor of Mount Allison University. It's one of my other duties, and I'm very fortunate to have that position. It too is a great honor. On the day last year that I was installed as Chancellor, I thought I'd try to prove that I was still pretty young. Young at heart, anyway, by communicating in a youthful way to those who are about to graduate. So I tweeted part of my address. Now let me try again, not speaking as a chancellor, but as a very grateful recipient of a York degree and as a speaker at this ceremony. First, I should enlighten some of those who've come to watch you today, some of whom may not know what a tweet is. tweets a message that's sent through an internet service called Twitter. And the message is limited to 140 characters. That includes spaces and punctuation. So you can see the challenge, trying to put something meaningful into 140 characters. And there are lots of gimmicks. People use short forms to try to reduce their character load. So if I was going to tweet today's message, I'd say, congrats, grads. Hope you learned lots at York. Go now and do good. Be proud, be happy. Make generous alumni contributions. Best for the future. That's 140 characters. Now, let me use Twitter as a launching pad of sorts to talk about the world you are going to try to navigate after graduation. Because Twitter and Facebook and all the other ways to communicate instantly without regard to national borders have all made our world move incredibly fast. So fast that it's impossible, literally impossible, to keep up with it all. Faster than anyone could have imagined not too long ago. Now, faster is better in many ways. Slowness carries a price. Here's my favorite example of slowness carrying a price. The War of 1812 between Canada and the United States. One of the biggest battles in that war was the Battle of New Orleans. It was a big American victory. That battle was fought on January the 8th, 1815. Now here's the remarkable thing. A treaty ending that war had actually been signed 16 days before, on December 24th, 1814, in Belgium. But news traveled so slowly in those days that no one on this side of the ocean knew anything about peace until sometime in February. So more than 350 men were killed in a battle that took place after the war had ended. Now, your world isn't anywhere near that slow. In fact, it moves so quickly you may find it hard to find time for things like thinking, reflecting, considering. I think you've got to make sure that you make time for those kind of things. For just as slowness carries a price, so too does speed. Now, I'm not suggesting we go back to 1812, even if we could. But let's do some thinking, some reflecting, some considering before you grab your degree and dash headlong into the world that's waiting for you. Let's use our imaginations for a couple of seconds and say that this day was happening 100 years ago. What was life in Canada like in 1911? How different was it from 2011? You think things are changing fast now? In 1911, we had a population of 7.2 million. That had gone up by 33% in just 10 years, the greatest rise in any decade before or since. In 1911 alone, 331,000 immigrants arrived in Canada. We don't plan to absorb that many newcomers this year in a country with a population 5 times greater. Imagine the competition for jobs back then. 100 years ago, cars were becoming a much bigger part of Canadian life. 36,000 of them sold in Canada in 1911. The speed limit in the cities was 13 kilometers an hour. But if you got out onto the highway, you could really open it up. It was 24 kilometers an hour there. Of course, we smile at how slow that was, but it didn't seem slow in 1911. Certainly was a lot faster than most horses ever went. We take it as completely routine today that women graduate from university by the thousands every year in Canada, and that women enter the workforce without any constraints. In 1911, more than 2.5 million Canadians worked outside the home. Just 350,000 were women. Most of them were teachers, nurses, domestic workers. The point I'm trying to make is that change has always been part of being Canadian, and that every generation believes its challenges are the greatest in history. In reality, no generation has an easy path to success, and you won't either. You'll have to be smarter than any generation has ever been. You'll have to be more flexible, learning every day of your life just to keep up with the advancements in your field. You'll have to be willing to change jobs, change employers, change your skill sets possibly. Frankly, I can barely imagine what your life will be like in 20 or 30 years. But I do know this. I know that you are up to the challenge, as both the Chancellor and the President echoed a few moments ago. You know why we're so confident of that? Because we Canadians always have been. That imaginary university class of 1911 I was talking about was real. They would face a world war just 3 years later. Then they went through the Great Depression, and later in life, another world war. Through all that, they managed to build the country that we're all so blessed to live in today. And though I've been talking about that class of 1911 as a collective, in fact, I'm really talking about individuals, because that's how achievements are reached. Each one of you has not only the opportunity to contribute to our society, you've got the responsibility to do that. Take what you've learned at York. Make our country and our world better. This is not a day for pessimism or for cynicism. In fact, I think we can all agree that those attitudes are rarely helpful. So take the opposite approach. You are special, every one of you. You are adults who will be asked to lead us, to make decisions for us. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great American poet and essayist, once said something I think is worth repeating because it captures a circumstance that we all face from time to time, and that you will face more often as you take on greater responsibilities and more difficult leadership roles. Here's what he said. Whatever course you decide upon, there's always someone to tell you that you're wrong. There are always difficulties arising which tempt you to believe that your critics are right. To map out a course of action and follow it to an end requires courage, which I guess is another way of saying follow your heart, follow your instincts, know what you believe in, and work for it. Don't let anyone or anything stop you. When you walk out of York for the last time, you'll be following in the footsteps of those who walked this same path before you. They helped build a better Canada. So can you. So will you. The accomplishments of some of you in the class of 2011 will be written in our history books. But you should each understand that we have faith in each of you, every one of you. Faith in your ability, faith in your character. We know that you will be a force for good. And all the good that you do will never be told in just 140 characters. So congratulations. Enjoy the day. It's yours. Thank you.